Okay, so I am showing you how to finish these work problems, and I'm starting with number 2, which we really didn't get to finish in class, and there was something really important that I needed to show you, but we just ran out of time, so that's why I'm making the video here. This piece is something that we didn't really have a chance to talk about, but it relates back to Sammy's very good question that she asked me during class. Let me do my little pointer. Okay, so over here we know that this right here, she asked me, what does this work represent? Really, I shouldn't have called this work. I should have called it job, because the thing that you have in this part is what part of the job this person can do, and what part of the job this person does. And that's why these two always add up to one whole. So when they're working together, Willie does 53 hundredths of the job, while Castell does 4.27 over x. And remember, we got that by multiplying the rate, that their rate alone times their combined time, and that's the part of the job they do combined. Okay, now, if you think of it and you realize that we know that this plus this, it has to equal one whole, we can actually use this part right here to set up an equation. If Willie does 53 hundredths of the job, then we can think to ourselves, what is 1 minus 53 hundredths? Because the whole job is 1, and he does 53 hundredths of it when they're working together. And if you on your calculator do 1 minus 53 hundredths, what do you get? Do that. 1 minus 53 hundredths. Well, that's 47 hundredths. So what I know is this expression that I have for the part of the job that Castile does when they're working together has to be equal to 0.47, because these two always have to add up to 1. I think this is quite different from problem number 1. It's not, it's a different way of looking at it, because one of these is known. Okay, so now I'm going to write the equation 4.2 over x is equal to 0.47, and I've done that over here. 4.2 over x equals 0.47. Now, my problem is I need to get the x by itself, and in this case, when the x is on the bottom, the easiest way might be to multiply both sides by x over 1. So I put in parentheses x over 1 there, and I put it over here, times x over 1. The parentheses mean to multiply. Okay, if you do on this side x times 4.24 and 1 times x, what you would really get, and I'm going to write it off to the side, if you really multiplied that out, whoops, I did not mean to do that. If you really multiplied these two things together, what you'd get, I'll try to change pen colors here, would be 4.24 x over x. Well, we already know that x divided by x is 1, and then that 1 times 4.24 ends up just being 4.24. So if you for a minute just ignore this, for a minute, the equation that I got when I multiplied x over 1 times 4.24 over x was 4.24. And then over here, if you do 0.47 times x over 1, you get 0.47x. Okay, well, how do you solve the equation 4.24 equals 0.47 over x? You divide by whatever's in front of the variable here. So I divide both sides by 0.47. Okay, when I did that, I got x equals 9 and then this big long decimal, which I did not clear off of my calculator. I'm not rounding it, because I want this to be as accurate as possible. So don't clear it, don't round it. Okay, that means that it's 9 hours, and I'm trying to figure out how many minutes. So to figure out how many minutes, I took my calculator, which already had 9.02127656 in it, and I subtracted 9. When you take 9.02127656 and you subtract 9, you're left with 0.02127656. I then took that portion, just the decimal portion, and multiplied by 60. I didn't want to have to retype in this decimal, and that's why I subtracted the 9, so that I would just be left with the decimal and I could multiply that by 60. When I did that, it looked like it was about 1 minute, which means that by himself, Castell's slower than Willie is, because it takes him 9 hours and 1 minute to do the same job that Willie can do in 8. Okay? Remember that the beauty of having a video is you can pause it whenever you need to. You can rewind it, re-listen to it. It's really important that you completely understand everything I've done. Okay, here's the third problem that goes in your interactive math notebook. So this one said, and you have it on your worksheet, I'm going to read it out loud to you though, Scott can harvest a field in 16 hours. So that's how come I put 16 right here. One day his friend Heather helped him and it took only 6.15. So that means that when they were working together, they got the job accomplished in 6 hours and 15/100ths of an hour. So it says, how long would it take Heather alone? Well, so now I can start filling out the rest of Scott's column here. If it takes him 16 hours, then in 1 hour he does 1/16 of the job. And we already know that working together their time is 6.15. So multiply your rate times your time and you get 6.15 over 16. You need to divide 6.15 divided by 16, and now your calculator should say 0.384375. Don't just copy these things. Actually do the multiplication, do the division. Make sure that you totally can do it on your own. All right, so now I'm coming down to Heather. Heather's alone time is unknown, so x, which means her rate is 1 over x. We already know how much time it takes them to do it together. And so now if I multiply her time together for her rate, I get 6.15 over x. Now, how did I get the 0.615626? Do you remember what these two have to add up to? They have to add up to 1. So what I did is I took 1 and I subtracted from it 0.384375, and I didn't round this because I want it to be accurate. And when I did 1 minus 0.384375, I want you to do this on your calculator, just don't take my word for it. I've had a stroke, who knows what kind of dumb mistakes I could make. You should get 0.615625. Remember, you can pause if I'm going too fast for you. You can rewind. Okay? So we know that about 38/100ths and about 61/100ths, closer to 62/100ths together, are equal to 1. That's one whole job. All right, so now we're going to solve this equation right here. Same way we did last time. So we write out the equation. That should be down here. I wrote it out. And then again, to get rid of that x, I'm multiplying by x over 1. X over 1. When I'm done, I end up with a new equation, and my new equation is 6.15 is equal to 0.615625x. Well, you're trying to get rid of what's in front of the x, so divide on both sides by that. And that gave me 9.9898477716. Now again, I want to know how many minutes this 0.989847716 represents. So I'm multiplying this decimal by 60. To do that, since I already had this in my calculator, I subtracted 9, and it left me with this portion. And then I multiplied that portion times 60, and it looked like it was about 59 minutes. So this is about 9 hours, 59 minutes. Number 4. Okay, so read the problem with me, and if you want, if you're feeling more confident now, you could pause the video and set it up yourself and see what happens without looking at the screen. So working alone, it takes Asanji 13 hours to pick 40 bushels of apples. Shayna can do the same thing. In 11 hours. I'm not sure why I used an E. That should be an S for Shayna. In 11 hours. Find out how long it takes them to do it together. So, if we know the alone, we can find the rate, 1 over 11. If we know the alone, we can find the rate. The time it takes them to do the job together, that's what we're trying to find, so that's my unknown, x. And if I multiply 1/11 times x, I should get x over 11. And if I multiply 1/13 times x, I should get x over 13. These two always have to add up to 1. Always, always, always. So here's my equation. X over 11 plus x over 13 is equal to 1. Now I need a common denominator for 11 and 13. I just multiplied these two together to see what it would be. I don't know if it's the lowest common denominator, but it works. I got 143. So to figure out what this one would be, 11 times 13 is 143, so do x times 13, and you're going to get 13x. So the equivalent ratio for x over 11 is 13x over 143. And over here, if you multiply by 11, you get 143. So multiply by 11 here, and you get 11x. So the equivalent ratio for x over 13 is 11x over 143. Now, I already explained to you why I highlighted these. This is just helping me track these, since I'm having a little more troubles with that since my stroke. I'm tracking that this plus this now are what's equal to 1. Okay? So when I add these, I get 24x. 13 plus 11 is 24. 24x over 143 is equal to 1. So now I multiply by the reciprocal on both sides. The reciprocal is 143 over 24. 143 over 24. I already know that this fraction times its reciprocal is 1, and 1 times x is x. And here, what I did is, I know that 1 times 143 over 24 is 143 over 24. So I just divided this, 143 divided by 24 on my calculator. And I got 5.958333333. So again, I wanted to know how many minutes this 0.958333333 represented. And so I multiplied by 60, the number of minutes in an hour. So again, because this is on your calculator, all you have to do is subtract 5, and then you'll be left with this, and times 60. So I said that it was 5 hours and 58 minutes if they do the job together. I hope that helped. Please make sure that in addition to having those problems done, you are also completely ready for your practice test. And remember that you needed integer problems, you needed a rectangle problem, you need 2 of each of these, you need 2 age problems, you need 2 distance problems, and you need 2 mixture problems. And since 5 times 2 is equal to 10, I will see 10 problems and 10 answers on your answer key. Good night.